Yeah, Jamie had hair and I didn't have a beard when this negotiation first started.
Is Bruno in the 10?
Why have they got two number 10s?
Now we've got Mateus
Now we've got Cunha and
Mbeumo.
yeah,
What
Mbeumo
are the
there.
cemented? What are the cemented?
I don't know.
Benjamin Sesko, for me, is the one to watch.
Rashford's legacy at United. When it ends badly, you kind of have the most recent memories to hand as a fan, and we shouldn't do that.
Just did not want him hanging around the place. Think about how sad that is.
I know.
I think he's from Devonshire. That's down the road from where I am. It's about 5-6 miles from Old Trafford. I mean, he lived the dream.
It's actually such a make or break move for him in itself.
Is very much Martinez pushing that narrative. Emi Martinez might be £35 million or more, and I don't think Manchester United would entertain that.
That sounds to me like a bargain. For Emi Martinez, I actually think Vardy is the no-brainer. I think Vardy is a free signing on the bench coming on, because he will score a heck of a lot of goals.
Arsenal at home, you can't be losing.
We're going to have to hold our nerve. Now we build the foundation. Now we build the philosophies.
Hello and welcome to Inside Devils, sponsored by MUTV on Sky. A must-have for Man United fans to watch every pre-season fixture live and exclusive. Watch anytime, anywhere. T's and C's apply. We've got plenty to get through today as Ruben Amorim's side kicked off their pre-season on Saturday afternoon, and lots has happened in the transfer market since we last recorded. Joining me in the studio is Ryon Scott-Douglas, and a warm welcome back to the show for the main man, the Manchester man, the man in Manchester, Mr. Jamie Jackson in his fluorescent green. I love it.
Woo.
I love it. We will be talking to Ben Jacobs very, very soon as well. But good to see you back, Jamie. How are you, mate?
I've never been better, Flex. How are you two gentlemen? Good, I hope.
Yeah.
Are you good, Ryan?
Yeah, no, we're good. Look, good. Life is good. Manchester United. Man, we've had a break, haven't we? But we're still seeing the same problems. We'll get into it, but I'm all right. You've just brought up some stuff there, that's all.
PTSD. Jamie, I wanted to ask you, actually, because I know you're a bit of a rock star. You been to any of the Oasis concerts? You planning on going to any?
Not really, no. I liked them at the time, and I quite like the tunes, but it's not really my scene wearing a bucket hat with thousands of other sort of like 20-year-olds, yeah. So I'm observing it from afar.
Mate,
yes.
there's a lot of veterans there. It's nostalgic. There's a lot of older lot there, mate.
It's a good mix.
Yeah.
It's a good mix these days.
Listen, I'm too cool for the crowd.
You can fit in anywhere, mate. You can really fit in anywhere. I've been away to Sweden, watched the boys play against Leeds. We'll talk about it in a little bit more detail. But Sweden, lovely place, lovely people, very hospitable. And the Strawberry Arena, had a little tour around there, actually, where Manchester United played against Leeds. Lovely arena as well.
Yeah, nice.
Going from Taylor Swift 1 week to Manchester United against Leeds the other, which is what they have to do in there, is exceptional.
Quite the dynamic. Do you know what, though? Your video hit my timeline of you dapping up Cunha over the barrier, man.
Yes,
I saw it. It was amazing to see. I thought, oh my gosh, like that. It's flex.
It was a nice moment.
Yeah,
it was a
man.
nice moment, and he's really happy to be there as well. He seems really happy. So
He seems
good
really
stuff.
down to earth.
He seems very, very down to earth. Another big signing. So
Yeah.
we've got all of that plus more. Now it's been a massive few days for the Red Devils in regards to the transfer window, with major advancements on the deals of Ryon Mbeumo and Marcus Rashford. So joining us now to give us the very latest, of course, is transfer expert Ben Jacobs. Good to speak to you, Ben. As always, Ryon Mbeumo has finally signed for the club. That's exactly what Manchester United fans have wanted to hear. 44 days it took. Will Manchester United... I wasn't counting. I just saw it on the internet. I don't know. But will Manchester United be happy with the price they've paid for Ryon Mbeumo in the end?
Yeah, Jamie had hair and I didn't have a beard when this negotiation first started.
Wow.
And by the way, as an aside, ask Mr. Jackson why he's wearing that green T-shirt, because it matches the colour of my face after we went to Disneyland together just a few weeks ago. I think you're trolling me, Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying to producer off air, I basically saved your life at Universal Studios, didn't I?
You didn't have enough sunscreen, Ben? What happened? You didn't get the Factor 50 out?
Do you know what? We survived the Hulk roller coaster, which is the scary one, and then Harry Potter, of all things, undid me with motion sickness, and Jackson heroically went and got me a Coke, and the sugar turned my face back to this pallid vampire complexion, but it was literally the colour of his shirt in the immediate aftermath.
Yeah, I was a bit worried, to be honest. So being the sort of, knight in shining armour I went off and I got you some regulation sugary drinks, and you were back to your best, weren't you?
What a hero.
I was straight on talkSPORT as well about an hour afterwards.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
But yeah, Brian and Mbeumo, probably people would prefer that than hearing how I almost vomited all over Jamie
I'm not going to
Jackson.
lie, this is a dynamic deal I didn't know I needed. To
Yeah,
be honest.
I didn't realise.
I want Chronicles of the Club World Cup. Disneyland Chronicles I want.
It's an off-air conversation, and we will continue it, I promise you. But yeah, look, Brian Mbeumo, one of the top targets for Manchester United, along with Matheus Cunha. It was slow, but ultimately it's what you get during a window rather than if it happens today, tomorrow, and so on. Manchester United just wanted both these players in time for their pre-season tour of America, and they've got them. And I do think it puts a slightly different complexion on Manchester United's window as a consequence. It's not gone unnoticed at Manchester United that only a handful of players, including Mo Salah and Alexander Isak, have scored more goals than Mbeumo over the course of the last 3 seasons. The fee was difficult to negotiate, over £70 million in the end. Manchester United's initial offer was only 45 plus 10. So they've gone up by about 20 million, but they've got their man. And I think the combination of Cunha and Mbeumo gives Manchester United confidence that they can score more goals. They've got proven Premier League quality. And now they'll turn their attention to trying to get a number 9 over the line. And key to this Mbeumo deal was really, despite links with clubs like Newcastle, Chelsea and Tottenham after Thomas Frank joined, Mbeumo only wanted Manchester United. And when a player wants to join as a buying club, you always have that feeling that you can push and get the deal over the line eventually, because the player was unwavering in his desire to join Manchester United. And if they can now get a number 9 and some players out the door, then it could suddenly become a very productive window for Manchester United.
Yeah, Ryan, how do you see it? I mean, he's through the door, Matheus Cunha. This is Brian Mbeumo. Exactly what we've been waiting for so long. What does that add to us? What's he going to give us that we've been...
Directness, directness and quality. And 20 Premier League goals, there'll be pockets and corners of different fan bases that will try and poo-poo this deal because we spent over 70 mil. But I think that's about right in today's market for someone who scored 20 Premier League goals last season, who has been one of the bright sparks of the Premier League in the last few seasons. So he adds that Premier League pedigree. We know he can do it in the league, and that directness. So I'm really, really happy that this signing has eventually happened. The only thing is, at the risk of sounding ungrateful, it does, now that he, no doubt he's going to be a starter and he comes into this 11, it does make me think, right then, the pack's going to get shuffled a little bit. We spoke about it a little bit as well. Your Brunos, where are these players going to play? That we know there's a fluidity between the 2 10s and the striker. Will there be games where he plays up top? What kind of profile are we looking for now with the number 9? So do we need a big, strong, striker who can hold it up, because we've got these 2 dynamic 10s? So there's so many questions that are being asked now, but I'm so happy we got this deal done finally.
It's a long time coming.
Yeah.
Long time coming. We absolutely need it. Jamie, for you, is that a needle mover for Manchester United? Is that exactly the type of player that they should be looking to? He's shaking. He's not sure. He's not sure.
My view is one of these 2 would have been enough. Then you get your alpha number 9, and if you've got the money, or a Garnacho or Rashford, I know Rashford's left, but the money's, then you go back for another number 10, because just being a number 9. Listen, I get the Mbeumo stat that was just said there about only Salah and Haaland have scored more, but I'd like to know the difference between those 2 players and Brian Mbeumo's total. I bet it's massive, because I think I read that it's 60 goals in 6 seasons for Brentford. That's not great. It's not bad, but it's not amazing. We're talking about a team here that, I get that it's struggling for goals, but the bar is so low. I think that the goal difference was -10, and I can't remember how goals United actually scored. Was it 47?
44.
Well, so the bar is so low that anything moves the needle. I don't want to. Listen, it's not about Brian Mbeumo specifically. It's about, why have they got 2 number 10s? Why has Amarin got 2 number 10s? He's got Bruno Fernandes, as Ryan just said there, who plays there. It's his natural position. He's unbelievably good there. I mean, he's a proper player, isn't he? He walks into any team, in my opinion, in the world. That's how good Fernandes is. I just don't get why they've gone for 2, just because of what I'm talking about. I mean, listen, they might pull off a Watkins or something like that, and then then that really is a good window. But I just find it a bit odd, especially when you go. We'll probably get into this in more depth in a bit, but this whole thing about central midfield, we've got no legs, we've got no pace. So there's another area, right? Yeah. Now maybe he's saying that, Amrin, he's flagging that actually they're confident of getting someone in, because very rare you'd hear a comment like that unless there's something coming down there, or unless he's sort of not putting pressure on the ball, but he's sort of he's sort of flagging that he really wants one. But I don't know. It just feels a little bit lopsided. I hope I'm proved wrong. Is he going to play one of these 2 players at number 9, because I just don't see at the moment why 2 10s were needed. And this also relates to me. I get that Garnacho sort of stood there after the Europa League final and said, I only played 20 minutes as a sub. I get that, and that's not good for the dressing room. I know there's lots of other stuff, but why is that another player who has become alienated from Amorim? I'm not saying he's the world's greatest player ever, Garnacho, but when we're talking about a squad that needs surgery, proper surgery, surely those already in the door who can play a bit for you want to keep on the side. I think Rashford's a different case. I think that that ship sailed a long time ago. But so what I'm saying is, if Garnacho was still on side, then again, he wouldn't have needed these 2 number 10s in his mind. So let's wait and see. I'm going to be glass half full on this and hope that they both really, really, take flame and score a hatful of goals, and I'll be made to look even more stupid than usual.
Ben, I mean, look, Jamie did touch on it there about the number 9, basically saying, if they still need that. What is the latest on number 9s for Manchester United? Because there's an awful lot going on there, and we know that the club are desperately looking for one.
Yeah, number 9 is the next priority, and obviously outgoings will inform what kind of budget they can generate. So getting the Rashford wage off the books, even though it's only a loan to Barcelona. Garnacho is the so-called pure profit. You would think that if they can get 50, 60 million for him, they will be able to move quite freely in the market, because remember, the Cunha fee is in 3 payments, and the first is on this financial year, not the last one, and therefore they will still have a little bit of budget, but not necessarily 100 million euros, which is why, despite inquiring on Hugo Ekitike earlier in the window, they were not able to proceed with that to any serious degree, plus the fact that the player only wanted Liverpool. We've heard a lot of reports in the last 24 hours about Victor Gyökeres. It's true, there is appreciation from Ruben Amorim, but naturally that one financially is tough to pull off, and the player at the moment only wants Arsenal. And Manchester United sources deny that they have a place to bid or plan to. So this is very much about Sporting offering the player to Manchester United to create a bit of competitive tension. So when you kind of cut through all of the smoke or ignore all of the noise, you're left more with an internal discussion at Manchester United rather than club-to-club talks for a number 9 at the moment anyway. And there's a few names that leap out. Benjamin Sesko, for me, is the one to watch, simply because the price for Sesko may drop as we get into late July or early August, because a lot of clubs looking for strikers will have found one, and there's less perhaps of a bidding war. And Leipzig know that the player wants to leave. And 12 months ago, Manchester United, along with Arsenal and Chelsea, made a pitch for Sesko. So he's a long-standing target. And now you've got Chris Vivell, who's the director of recruitment and effectively the number 2 to Jason Wilcox. And he knows Sesko from his own time at the Red Bull Group. So I think at the right price, that's a deal that Manchester United would like to do. But Arsenal struggled to drive his release clause, which is over 80 million euros down. And that's why if Sesko is to develop with Manchester United, there may be some patience in talks or negotiations required. A lot of talk about Nicholas Jackson. My understanding there is that Manchester United at the moment have no plans to bid. And that's partially because Chelsea's asking price is quite high. If that was to change, I think Chelsea might have to escalate their own pursuit in Alejandro Garnacho, and then maybe there's some mutual business to be done. But all signs as of now are that Manchester United don't think Nicholas Jackson is feasible. Ollie Watkins could be another name to watch. And then later in the window, if they can't find somebody, I think your point about could Mbeumo or Cunha play as a 9? Well, yes. And then you've got the more market opportunities to keep half an eye on. I don't think these are priorities now, but Dominic Calvert-Lewin's a free transfer and has offered himself to Manchester United. Nothing really mutual at this stage. And Alexander Mitrovic is another name that I keep hearing. If Al Hilal sign a striker, then they'll want Mitrovic to leave. And there might be a late window opportunity for a loan with some wage coverage that suits all parties. Again, I think it falls into the Calvert-Lewin category where if they can't get feasibly the other targets that I mentioned, they'll pivot and see where the market opportunities arise later in the window. And Mitrovic could also be a name, therefore, to watch.
Marcus Rashford has also left the club as well. He's on his way to Barcelona. How massive is that for Manchester United to get those wages off, Ben, in their entirety?
Yeah, it's huge. And if nothing comes of the loan with a buy option, then there's kind of a penalty clause as well, very similar to when Chelsea returned Jadon Sancho, paying Manchester United 5 million to override their obligation to buy. So I think Manchester United see this as win-win, although Barcelona will probably be the ones triumphantly saying they've got the option under the £40 million. They've got the loan that they were looking for. But for Manchester United, as you say, it's getting the wage off the books. And in taking the wage off the books, Rashford has also taken a pay cut. So if he ends up back at Manchester United after all of this, his overall package is lower. And it was important, I think, for Manchester United to set the tone and get this outgoing done early. Because with Jadon Sancho, not really an issue because the number is between 20 and 25 million. So Manchester United believe that there's onus on Sancho to agree terms, to take a pay cut, and no one's going to have a problem there with Manchester United. With Anthony, it's a much more respectful and less acrimonious situation. He wants Real Betis. He's waiting. There's no bad blood, as far as I'm aware, between Anthony and Manchester United, even though Anthony said before the UEFA Conference League final that he basically moved to Betis for revenge to show Manchester United what he can do. But I don't think it's that personal between Amorim and Anthony. But with Rashford, I think they just didn't want him around Carrington for a long period of time, lingering and waiting to find his next club. And that's why they've somewhat caved and gone for a loan. And in the end, I think financially, at least, this deal will suit all parties. And hopefully it allows Manchester United to start to get moving in the market as they search for yet more goals. And it won't be a like-for-like Rashford replacement, but it will be back at that profile we discussed before, a number 9, somebody that can either compete with Højlund and Xerxes, or alternatively, somebody that can effectively replace Rasmus Højlund. And that's the most interesting scenario, because I think Xerxes is more likely to stay. Højlund wants to fight for his place, but if they can find another number 9 courtesy of this flurry of outgoings, then it will be Manchester United perhaps telling Højlund that they think he should be looking elsewhere.
A lot to unpack there, but just on the Marcus Rashford situation, many thought that how on earth is Marcus Rashford, believing that he's going to get to Barcelona? How is he going to get to Bayern Munich? These types of big moves he was laughed at. In the end, he got his wish. He's playing for the Spanish champions, competing in the Champions League, one of the best teams in the world with future Ballon d'Or winners in it. How do you think he's going to do, and what do you make of that move?
I don't think he's going to do. I think he's going to get a chance there to sort of start games and, establish himself. He'll have to take it. I mean, because I don't think he'll get too many. I think there might be injuries and, the sort of force upon Hansi Flick to select him again. But what I'm saying is he's a very good player, right? He is. But, and this is the biggest but, not consistent enough. So actually, how good a player is someone who can't turn it on? Not every match, but most matches of the season. He just can't. Look at his track record. He did it in one season. That's kind of why we're in the situation, Manchester United and Rashford are in the situation they find themselves in now with a sort of 365, 370 a week bumper package. I think it's only Casemiro who earns more. It's a great move for him. I'm pleased for him because I do, I always felt when he was in a United team, there's an X factor here. They've actually got a player here who the opposition is scared of. If he actually, I'm not too sure United have got too many others. Listen, Fernandes is like that, but he's not the same dynamic, effervescent pace, sort of threat, direct, or down the flanks. So that was a little bit of fantasy United had with Rashford in the team. And that's why it's such a shame. As I'm listening to Ben there, and he's completely correct, they just did not want him hanging around the place. Think about how sad that is.
I know.
I think he's from Devonshire. That's down the road from where I am. It's about 5-6 miles from Old Trafford. It's his boyhood club. I mean, he lived the dream. And don't get me wrong, he's played, I think, over 450 games for United. But if he'd continued, you would be thinking he might have a chance of overtaking Ryan Giggs as the record appearance holder, yes? Because he's about halfway there now, and he's only, 26, 27. So it's such a shame. I saw his sort of Premier League debut. I think it was against Arsenal. He had those 2 goals, did it against Liverpool. He has done it. I was at the PSG game, the late penalty, which got Solskjaer the job permanently, for example. So I think it's a crying shame. I don't support United, but I do love seeing players come through, at the team's eye. It's just, Phil Foden at City's the same. You love to see it. There's something about it. It's just, because they are from that local area and they've gone from fans, watching their team to actually playing for and then doing really well. So I really hope he does well at Barcelona. I think it is a shame. If you ask me slightly different, do I think he'll do well? I think in the end, I think his track record suggests he won't, consistently, unless La Liga proves to be less of a demand with regard comparing it to the Premier League, I think it's not quite as tough a league. Yeah, listen, it's got some footballers, etc., etc. So it could go either way, but I think it's 60-40 against him succeeding. But I hope he does, because if he does, then it's going to be good for England, apart from anything else, the national team. And then it'll be interesting when he comes back next summer.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to bolt onto what you've said there, because something Ben said earlier about his wages. I don't know. I never really thought about the wage structure, but so when he comes back, he's still on that salary. If he comes, at Manchester United. But so it makes me think about this move, right? From Marcus Rashford's perspective, is so make or break, because he's taken this massive wage cut, which indicates he's happy to have that wage going forward. And then if the move doesn't work out from Barcelona and Manchester United don't want him, what are the options? So it's actually such a make or break move for him in itself.
It is. But I feel like it had to happen. It did have to happen. And I think in terms of Rashford's legacy at United, it's difficult sometimes to quantify, because when it ends badly, you kind of have the most recent memories to hand as a fan. And we shouldn't do that. I think we need to look at the good times that Marcus Rashford had. Like Jamie said, played over 400 odd games for Manchester United, over 100 goals, I think it is, for Manchester United as a boyhood club. He's won trophies at Manchester United. When you start off in the academy at the age of 7, let's say, and you get told you can play once in the first team, for a lot of players, a lot of guys, that's like, I've made it. Wow, I can say I've got an appearance or two for Manchester United. He's got hundreds. And I think he has struggled with consistency, but we know there's a player in there. We know there is a player in there. I believe there's a player in there as well. And I think the fact that a lot of people thought he wouldn't get this move is sad, but I see why, because of how inconsistent he's been. But what people aren't really realising is 3 top coaches, 3 top managers in world football have all thought they can get a tune out of Marcus Rashford. Unai Emery, Thomas Tuchel, who put him back in the England squad, and Hansi Flick, who last time I checked is an unbelievable manager. So maybe we're asking the wrong questions about Marcus Rashford. What are we missing that these top managers are looking at and saying, with a clean break and a clean slate, which is needed for him, there is something there. I think he's going to do really, really well. I don't think he's going to be this bench warmer with no opportunities. If Anthony can go to Real Betis and turn it around like that, what's Marcus Rashford going to do playing against Valladolid when Barcelona, the best team in the league, on the front foot, playing with Lewandowski, Lamine Yamal one side, Dani Olmo, Rafinha, Pedri, Gavi. Oh my! In the Champions League for Villa, when he was playing against PSG, he was the best player on the pitch, and then he came off, and then the game turned. So when in these Champions League nights, Trent's probably having nightmares. He's gone to Spain thinking he'd get away from Rashford at right back, and he's going to be playing against him in the Clasico. So listen, I think it's a good move for him, and I think it'll be great for him. Ben, just before we let you go, because I know you're a very, very busy man, it is transfer season. The goalkeeper and central midfielder situation is at Manchester United, though, because away from the number 9, we do know that those are the other 2 priority areas.
Yeah, exactly. I think another midfielder could come in. Ruben Amorim is very keen on these sort of engine room type midfielders. I still expect Kobbie Mainoo to stay at the club. I think the player wants to find a way to get a new deal over the line. Manuel Ugarte is seemingly the right kind of profile, but Ruben Amorim has to get consistency out of him. Casemiro is maybe a player, despite the fact he remains well contracted, that Manchester United would be prepared to take off the books, especially the wage. We've constantly heard about Saudi links, but nothing is developing at the moment. So maybe an outgoing is needed there. But if they can bring in another midfielder, it's a possibility. I don't think it's necessarily the number 1 or even the number 2 priority at this stage. But with an outgoing, that situation may change. They've held some talks with the camp of Wilfred and Didi to see whether there's like a budget option. He's got a relegation release clause of 9 million, and yet nothing is necessarily developing yet. And it's more perhaps the player side pushing Manchester United as a possibility than the other way around. But I think if they add a midfielder, they might have to look at more of a budget type option and a squad player. And that's where they've also had some discussions about Frank Onyeka as well, who maybe Brentford will sanction an exit for. But I know Keith Andrews actually has been quite impressed by the player in these early days of pre-season, even though under Thomas Frank, he was maybe surplus to requirements. And remember too, because Christian Norgard has left for Arsenal, that might change changed the thinking of Brentford somewhat. With the goalkeeper situation, it's still under discussion. Do they stick to their original plan, which was to sign a young number 2 with the expectation that Bayindir would depart, or do they feel they need a number 1? And Onana's injury could influence things, even though some say he'll only be out for 4 weeks. Others say it might be closer to 6 to 8 with a hamstring injury. And then the bigger picture, if they go for a number 1, is they have to tell Onana you're surplus to requirements, and that hasn't happened yet. So even though he's injured at the moment and there's a lot of speculation, Onana's working on the premise that he's safe at Manchester United and he is the number 1 goalkeeper. So on the one hand, you have this courting of Manchester United by Emi Martinez. And it's not impossible that Manchester United will try something there, but it is very much Martinez pushing that narrative and Manchester United listening rather than moving. And then if they stick to that first plan, Sene Lammens, the young Antwerp goalkeeper, is one possibility. I know they've looked at Victor John as well, but Lammens is the one that they've started initial talks with. And if they get that number 2, then it will be Manchester United just ignoring everything about how they need to replace Onana and only finding a young goalkeeper that's prepared to be patient, compete with Onana, but not start as the number 1 right away. And my sense at the moment is that Villa are going to make an Emi Martinez exit difficult anyway, because they sold their women's team to their parent company. They feel PSR compliant. We're into a new financial year. He's well contracted. Emi Martinez might be £35 million or more. And I don't think Manchester United would entertain that. So it wouldn't surprise me if we hear a lot of talk about Emi Martinez, and then whilst all of that noise happens behind the scenes, they stick to their strategy, which is to find a young number 2.
It feels like it's a bit of a mess in a way, because you're having to wait for something to happen, for something else to happen, for something else to happen. You mentioned that they're going to prioritise the 9 earlier, but then the 9 might take a while because of, so it feels like they're going to have to wait for something to drop, for something else to drop, and that includes the outgoings as well. So is there a danger that United could run out of time? I'll just ask it outright.
No, I don't think so. We're very early in the window. I think fans are conscious of time because every time one signing comes in, you immediately want the next one. And the market requires you to wait and be patient. So if time appears to be ticking away, that doesn't necessarily mean inaction. It can be because you're waiting for the price to drop. Maybe you have to respect the club that are selling. Perhaps they are occupied with other things. Maybe the player is still on holiday. So doing nothing in the market isn't always inaction. It can be a tactic. And I would say that if it's Emi Martinez, the price will only drop later in the window. The same for Liverpool and Mark Gahey. If they are to add a number 9, they'll need to bring in more funds. And it's normal that they won't be reckless and they'll stay disciplined. They'll see what they can manage and they'll walk away from deals if people continue to charge them a Manchester United tax. So it has felt like other clubs have been quicker than Manchester United, and it does feel they've got a lot to do between now and when the window closes. But 5 weeks or so is a long, long time in a transfer window, and I don't think we can speak of time running out until perhaps we get to the first game of the Premier League season. And if they're exactly where they are now, when they kick off the Premier League season, then yes, they'll have a lot to do and time will be running out. But now I would imagine that Jason Wilcox and his team are quite calm about the situation.
Ben, always a pleasure, mate, to speak to you. Thank you very much for giving us the very latest there on Manchester United's transfers. Ben Jacobs, talkSPORT. I mean, he's his guru. He is a guru. He's everywhere.
Yeah, he is.
I'm saying, I feel like I've spoke to Ben so many times over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure I'm going to speak to him so many times more.
Yeah, he's thriving this window.
He is thriving. There's lots of, but also he's getting time to, relax and be sick on rides in Disneyland. So he's getting the best of both worlds. So Saturday saw our pre-season campaign get up and running in Stockholm with a juicy clash against Leeds United. Neither team found the net, but plenty of players got minutes, including new signings Matheus Cunha and Diego Leon. So Matheus Cunha up and running, Ryan.
Yeah.
What did you make of his debut?
It was nice because it feels like he's just picked up from Wolves. and he's been dropped into a Manchester United shirt, and it's more of the same. And that's what you want to see. He was direct. He was trying to make things happen. He only had a half, didn't he? But he was trying his best with what was around him. So it's good, and hopefully more to come. And it's the first game in the United shirt, which, let's be honest, the kid in me still gets excited about that new signing in the new United kit. So it was great to see. Leon as well, and the left back. He's obviously, Amrin alluded to it in his post-match conference. He's fresh. He's, in a new country, and it's a new team, a new environment. So all things considered, he did good as well. So, there was a lot of positives. I still feel like, without being too pessimistic, I still feel like the same problems presented themselves as that game just continued to unravel. Heaton becomes the best goalkeeper that I've seen in a few months from Manchester United.
Still a good keeper, mate.
You've said that,
I've said it loads of times. Mate, if he had to play, I'm not mad.
Exactly. Do you know what? He pulled off some good saves as well. So look, there were some positives in there, but there's still just that. The more I see Manchester United, the more I reflect on Manchester United, there's something wrong in midfield. There is just a disconnect in midfield, and I don't know whether Bruno is going to solve that problem. So that's why just hearing Ben there talk about the transfer, I was really propping my ears up about a midfielder. So it was good. It does feel like both teams just shook hands at the start and said, let's agree to draw and just have some minutes. Don't get me wrong.
Don't get injured.
Yeah, but that's pre-season for you.
It is. Jamie, listen, it was 0-0, and look, on the same day, I saw that Newcastle United took a hammering off of Celtic 4-0. I saw Villa lose 3-1 to an under-21 side. Pre-season's pre-season. But how important is this pre-season for Ruben Amorim and the perception and the momentum and the feeling? Because, yes, there's one thing to get fit and, learn the system, etc., etc. And there's another thing of you keep taking bad L's, which hasn't happened yet, but I'm saying if you have a bad pre-season and that feeling of optimism into the season isn't there, all of a sudden you've got a bigger problem.
100%, especially, we should remember, not that I'm sure you two gents have forgotten, that United finished 15th.
We did, yeah.
Did we? I blacked out towards the end of the season. I can't remember.
And Amorim, you could sort of say he's 3/4 responsible for that because he came in on 28th of October, I think it was. So he's kind of responsible for that. Listen, for me, no head coach as it is now, or Manchester United should be finishing 15. I don't care if you come in, after Christmas. You just shouldn't, for all the reasons that are obvious, the resources, the club, the crowd, the stadium, the history, everything that goes into having to play United, yeah? So I think that's a really, really, really bad calling card for him. But glass half full again. I like the way that he's got an idea and sticking to his sort of formation, but I'm really, really interested to see if he's actually going to say, you know what, actually come out and say it at some point. So, I'm going to play for every now if I need to. That's all he has to do. Doesn't necessarily even have to do it if he doesn't want to. But just this sort of having to stick to this system because it's somehow a badge of honour. Southampton basically went down, Burnley went down playing a certain way. I'm not saying United are going to go down next season, but what I'm saying is it doesn't get you anywhere sticking to a system if the results out there. I don't care who you are. And actually, I think it's a sign you're not a top coach if you can't be flexible. You just have to be. Guardiola's played wing-backs, if you remember. I think the first season especially played 5 at the back, you want to call it that way. The narrative around United, on the one hand, I will get a stick from United fans saying, you only use Manchester United as a big name, for sort of interest and stories. But yeah, that's exactly the point. There is an interest in Manchester United because Manchester United is an absolutely massive football club. Forget about our country, the whole world. And so what I'm saying is, because of that, there is an added focus, each season on United, how they start. But this time, they're going to want to stick with Amorim. But if you remember, it was only 12 months ago, which I can't believe. Ten Hag was in a sort of similar situation, wasn't he? Yeah, and they stuck with him, and he was gone by the end of October.
Season,
They're trying to untangle it, and maybe Rashford going out the doors. I think very good bit of business we discussed. Maybe this is finally going to be the summer when, yes, house is in order, and it's actually a proper elite back of house operation. The executive there, Ratcliffe, Wilcox, operating so that Amorim could do his stuff. I'd love to see how Amorim does if he actually gets the play. For me, a special window is actually a new goalkeeper, a new midfielder, a new number 9, plus the 2 number 10s. That's 5 players, right? Obviously, if it happens, right? Then I don't think Amorim's got any excuses because there'll be players he wants.
They definitely won't have any excuses.
Well, really, that's Wilcox's job this summer. He's got to do that for Amorim to give him the best chance. But it's a bit unfair on him, really. If he comes out of it, and he's only got the 2 number 10s, and let's say, I don't know. I mean, just going back to the number 9, I actually think Vardy is the no-brainer. I think Vardy is a free signing on the bench coming on because he will score a heck of a lot of goals, and has done. He's got that edge to him. I think that's a no-brainer. Forget about Calvert-Lewin, who always seems to be injured. I would go for Vardy.
You think Vardy?
If it gets to a stage, if it gets to a stage where you have to get a number 9,
I don't mean someone, yeah. Oh man,
I'd have over 80 million for Jackson, by the way. 80 million for Jackson. Who do Chelsea think they are? By the way,
they're not serious with that. They're not.
They can't be.
And that is the problem. I mean, on pre-season, though, Ryan, what spaces are up for grabs? What positions? You look at young Diego Leon coming in.
Yeah.
Harry Amas is going to go out on loan, so that's almost the thinking there.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's Dorgu's to lose, but is there an option there? Up front, obviously, there's major surgery that needs to be done there, whether that's Rasmus Højlund leaves or Joshua Zirkzee has to hold the fort because we didn't get a number 9, but you've got Kuhn and Mbeumo. The number 10s, people are jostling for that, or, because Kobbie Mainoo, Ahmad, who's been deployed at right wing-back but can play in a 10. Mason Mount plays in a 10.
Yeah.
Is there space there in the 2 number 6 positions?
Yeah.
Centre-halves, Aidan Heavens looking to try and get in, but Lisandro Martinez is on his way back.
Yeah.
Harry Maguire and De Ligt as the centre. Who Lenny Yoro looks a shoo-in.
Yeah.
Mazraoui's the utility man. He can play everywhere. Who starts at right wing-back, Ahmad or Dalot?
Yeah, listen, I think you've covered it. I think it's all up for grabs. I think that's the worrying thing about Manchester United is you can... The only position...
Yeah, what's cemented then? Who's cemented?
The only position I would have told you is cemented is Bruno in the 10. That's probably the only position.
What now? Right. So now we've got Mateus Cunha.
Now we've got Cunha and
Mbeumo.
Yeah,
what are the cemented? What are the cemented?
I don't know. I honestly can't tell you. Probably right wing back Ahmad. If that's where he wants to play him.
Yeah.
Then I can see that being right.
Okay, so Ahmad?
Yeah, so Ahmad's there.
Yeah. Cunha?
You have to put Cunha and Mbeumo there.
So they're 2 automatic
So they're 2 that are cemented as well.
Is Bruno a starter somewhere in the team?
Bruno has to start in midfield.
He'll start in
Yeah, so you've got to put him there. And that's probably it. And that is probably it. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, no,
Lenny Yoro. I think he's a starter.
Yes, okay.
I think Lenny Yoro is a starter.
Okay, yeah.
As long as he's fit, I think he's a starter at either right centre-back or left centre-back, depending on what's going on.
But the other 2 centre-backs, I think there's still room for an experienced world-class centre-back to be there. I'm not convinced by any of the other centre-backs. I know Harry Maguire had a good-ish season. I know De Ligt, when he's been in, has been okay as well. He's been quite solid. But there's no one there that makes me want to write home about them, apart from probably Yoro, because you factor in his age and he has been good. And considering he's a new signing, he hit the ground running, really.
Leach are coming back. Luke Shaw's still there.
But then this is the thing, coming back, he may well come back out. And that's, again, am I convinced by the fact that he can see a whole season through Licha? I'm not too sure. So, yeah, there's not many places that are cemented there. And midfield, again, I know Jamie's, alluded to it there. Midfield, goalkeeper, striker are glaringly obvious things that we need to address. I said it in last week's episode. Yeah. Mbeumo coming through the door is fantastic. I don't want to be pessimistic about that. It is brilliant. But would I prioritise that? I agree. Probably not. Especially if you wanted United the whole time. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. In answer to your question, there's not many.
Well, we got to about 4 or 5, didn't we?
Yeah.
Jamie, how do you see it in terms of jostling for positions and nailed on starters?
I've got to be honest, I don't think Yoro he has to prove that he could be consistent. He had a mistake in last season. I know he's 18 or maybe 19 now, he's young, but this is Manchester United. So of the centre-backs, he's probably the one I like the most.
Yeah.
So I think any of them are absolutely amazing. I mean, Martinez, Leach is an interesting case because sadly for him and for us who watch United, he's injured a lot. And so
2 big injuries.
I really love him as well.
He wasn't injury prone like this before.
No.
And when the first one happened, I thought, that's unlucky.
Yeah.
He got his foot stuck in the floor against Sevilla, I think it was. And then the one against West Ham, which was the other knee, was his knee, and Kufal fell on his knee. It was just unlucky. It wasn't like, you're injury prone. But they're 2 big injuries, you're right.
So I think there was also another one, wasn't there, in between the sort of... But anyway... Listen, maybe he has just been unlucky, but I think if you go through this team, very interesting listening to you 2 gentlemen there, trying to decide who is nailed on for a place, because, I'm going to have to say this. Mbeumo and Cunha, especially Cunha, I've seen more of, I really like I like Cunha's edge because, by the way, I don't think you're nasty enough, United. I think every team
we need
has an
that.
edge, right? And like Cunha, I'm not saying he's a nasty character, but you know what I mean. He'll have attitude. Yeah, let's put it that way. He'll have attitude. I think you need that, right? Kevin De Bruyne, for example, in his own way, had attitude. But as I'm listening to you sort of say, yeah, they're both nailed on to start. They definitely are. But who knows where we'll get to in sort of, I don't know, the start of autumn, back end of September, beginning of October, and there's like been a win or two here, then a couple of draws, and then oh my god, goodness me, we've lost to them.
Yeah.
United have lost again, and but Mbeumo hasn't scored for 5 games. So I can just see it happening just because it.
On that, Jamie, how many of the bad habits and the bad sort of things we saw from last season, how much of that do you think will carry into this season versus? Listen, it's 1 game a week, more time on the training field like Amorim's asking for, new players, so we start to come away from the bad, habits we saw in last year.
This is what's going to be really interesting because this is a proper reset. You sort of said, or we talked earlier about how important it is for Amorim. He's basically got these conditions now. He's getting rid of these players that he considers sort of bad influences or just not right for him. Garnacho, Rashford, especially. So they're not going to be lingering around. And this only 1 game a week, apart from like that when the Carabao Cup's involved. There's no Europe, right? So this is he really does have. A big opportunity here. So hopefully the bad habits won't be there anymore. Because if not, listen, if he falls out with another couple of players this season, I'm going to have to start to think it's down to him being unable to rise above, stuff that maybe you need to be a top man manager. I'm sure Ferguson can fall out in an empty room with himself sort of thing. But he knew how to man manage. Cantona, I'm guessing, was his own person, a bit of a maverick, but he could play football unbelievably, an amazing player. So what I'm saying is I'm interested to see, will there be I think Sancho, he had a track record under Ten Hag as well. I think he's another good one to sort of believe in the club. But it'd be interesting. Will we be sitting here, maybe on this show at Christmas time saying, crumbs, yeah, we talked about this in summer, but hasn't he done really well? Like, no fallouts. Maybe we're in 5th position, sort of just near, challenging the Champions League. Yeah.
Just tricking along with no controversy, no one talking about us.
Exactly.
Just quietly going about our business. How nice would that be?
Would be nice.
Just one thing to throw in here. I wonder if Højlund's going to get some more chances because I know everyone says he's rubbish. I'm not so sure, me. I'm not saying he's amazing, but I want to see him in 2 or 3 games being offered 4 or 5 chances. If he doesn't pot any of those, then I'll agree. But I still think he was he has been starved. And maybe these 2 number 10s, these 2 mythical number 10s that Amorim seems to think is going to solve a lot of it, we're going to create chances. So, yeah, you're right, Flex, to point that out. This is what's going to be interesting. Will it be a new culture? Will it be actually,
will it look and feel different?
Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, I haven't watched us against Leeds, and it's very early in pre-season, so I'm not going to be sensationalist and start trying to just make noise for the sake of making noises. But if I'm honest, just with myself, I see a lot of those patterns of build-up and discrepancies in how we keep the ball and the intensity in our game, lack of pressing. I just see them carrying over into this new season.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. With the likes of Mbeumo and Cunha and some more signings coming in. But I think we're just going to run into problems in midfield. But like you say, we have to wait until the window's over. Like James says, if we don't get a striker and if we don't get a proper central midfielder, but we have invested heavily into 2 10s, you start to question why the priorities were that way around. What I wanted to ask you, Ryan, is Rennie Wallenstein was talking about how important the first 10 games are of this season. And we've seen in those first 9 or 10, we've got 3 of the top 6. And you've got 2 of them at home. How important is it for us to be patient versus Amorim has to get something out of these? Arsenal at home, you can't be losing. I know you can lose it on any given day against Arsenal because they're a great team. Chelsea at home, Fulham away after that, second game. Then it's Burnley, then it's City away, and then Chelsea home. That's like the first 5 games.
Man, do you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to think how to word this really. We're going to have to hold our nerve as Manchester United fans. We are going to have to hold our nerve, and so is the board as well. To say they're going to have to back him is an understatement because, in my opinion, because everyone's talking about rebuild, lads. A rebuild, I've said it before, implies there's a foundation to build on. There is no foundation at Manchester United at the moment, no foundation whatsoever. And that kind of, however long, back half of the season that Amorim's had did absolutely nothing for us. There was no building in that period. So this pre-season and this season, we are now in the foundation building
So
stage.
you're basically saying, essentially, I know there has been a phase before this which was shocking, where Amram said the storm.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're saying maybe this is the real phase one.
There's still stormy times ahead. I know what Amarin said. I still think there'll be stormy times ahead. I'll be honest. But this is the perfect season to build that foundation. We can't even lay down the bricks yet. We need to build that foundation because we've got no European football, and we'd like European football. But like you say, it slows down the pace of our season dramatically. So now we build the foundation. Now we build the philosophies. Let's write off that last season. So those 10 games, yes, they're important, and those results against those big teams will be fantastic. But let's hold our nerve here and back the manager and back his philosophies. That's what we're going to have to do. And that's how I envision this season. And future seasons, that's when we start putting down the bricks.
Jamie, for you, where does our transfer window rank amongst the other Premier League teams as it stands? Of course, you've got the big uns who are competing for the Premier League, with some big fees. They're, Liverpool, City, etc. Arsenal about to do something massive as well. Where, we have brought in Premier League proven quality. And if Matheus Cunha went to Arsenal, if Bryan Mbeumo went to Liverpool, they would be revered as really good signings, the best of the rest, as they say. Where does Man United's window rank currently?
So as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about City, for example, who got in Turkey and, everyone else, Reinders. I actually think United have done as well as City, considering that City are from a position of strength with like 400 or 500 million in the bank. They can, they got cash that's from winning the treble, the Champions League, blah, blah, all that sort of stuff. So I think United are doing as well at the moment, right? Because they have got, they spent 100, well, I know it's going to be staggered payments, but, 130 million so far. Which, remember, apparently United are going to go bankrupt, and Ratcliffe has to cut all these staff because they have the skin, and you're still able to pay for these players, and we're talking about others. So I think at the moment, Wilcox has done a good job. My only caveat is with regard to, I know it sounds boring because I've said it before, do they need these two number 10s? If we get to the end of, the 1st of September, and there's a striker and maybe a midfielder, then fair play, they've had a very good one if the players work. But at the moment, I don't think anyone's done better or worse than United. I think United are holding their own. I think they could be pleased with it because Ben's right. It's 6 weeks to go, and you've got these sort of two attacking players in. And I'm hoping Cunha is going to add. I was a bit surprised Barada went down the sort of he could be our Cantona line because that's a big call.
Yeah, just don't do it.
Just don't say it.
Yeah. Exactly. But if Cunha might be thinking, come on. Yeah, I'll
Mason Mount was thinking that when he got the 7 as well. we just need to stay. But you have got a bit. I said about Rashford. I think you have got a bit of fantasy with Cunha. I think he could be. He's got an edge.
Very good for you. Yeah. He's got something about him. I don't know exactly. An X factor. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
At the moment, United have done really could be pleased with where they're at. If they get in the other players, in the areas we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree on that, Jamie. There's so much more work to do. Remember, Manchester United taking on West Ham. That game is on Saturday. That's Sunday for you guys, but Saturday for me because I'll actually be there. There you go. How about that? Saturday, you can catch that on MUTV. Right, that was Inside Devils, sponsored by MUTV on Sky. A must for Man United fans to watch every pre-season fixture live and exclusive. Watch anytime, anywhere. Existing Sky TV customers can upgrade now for just £7 extra a month. Just search MUTV on Sky or go to sky.com/MUTV. £7 extra on a 31-day rolling subscription. It requires HD-compatible Sky equipment and Sky TV subscription from £15 a month. Cancel MUTV on 31 days notice. Terms apply. And we'll see you on the next episode of Inside Devils.